So we spent the weekend in Berlin and then headed over to Brussels to do actual work. So,
Okay.
partied a bit first and then went straight into work in Brussels. And
So play first, then work. I like it. Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Dear Ron. I'm Cameron Ivy over at Transcend, and of course, I have Mr. Ron De Jesus with me. Ron, how are you, man?
it's been a while, Cam. What happened to our dear Rons?
It has been a while. There's a lot going on though, and you've been traveling a lot. First
Yeah.
of all, let's take we'll do our sips real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers to Dear Ron and everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in.
What are you actually drinking?
Just hot coffee.
I am drinking sugar-free Fanta,
Oh,
Guarana flavor.
what is Guarana?
I think it's a Brazilian fruit.
Okay.
Oh.
Anyways, so Ron, you've been traveling a lot in the EU. Let's
Mhm.
start off with Berlin. You were over in Berlin recently, right?
I was over in Berlin. That was not transcend work related. I had a lot of fun. Have you been to Berlin, Cam?
I have not.
They have a really good house music, EDM scene. I did end up getting into Berghain, which is apparently the world's most difficult club to get into. So that was fun. So we spent the weekend in Berlin and then headed over to Brussels to do actual work. So,
Okay.
partied a bit first and then went straight into work in Brussels. And
So play first, then work. I like it.
usually I would prefer the other way around, but yeah, logistically speaking, we thought it'd work better that way. But
Nice. Okay, so you guys went to Brussels for FPF, right?
yeah, so the Future Privacy Forum holds a Brussels Privacy Symposium annually. They have a Washington, D.C. event. This was their EU focused symposium, focused
Okay.
mostly on GDPR reform and also kind of all the digital regulations that are happening right now and talking them through how the EU is trying to align all of these digital rules. It's mostly made up of academics, civil society, lawyers, regulators as well. Very few operational folks at these symposiums. So it's actually a great time for me to kind of dig back into the theoretical and learn a lot about what's happening in regulation. Because as you know, Cam, I'm highly operational, but it's always good
Right.
to kind of get that audience and have those discussions that are a little bit more theoretical and more high level. So it was great.
Different perspectives, different views on things, so it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So Ron, from the FPF event, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
My biggest takeaway from the FPF event, Cam, was actually what I learned from DG Just. They're the folks that are responsible for this proposed simplification around the GDPR. What I took from just hearing from the panelists and kind of the questions that were asked was that there's still a lot of uncertainty. There's not a lot of alignment in terms of what folks think GDPR simplification should be. I think theoretically, what the DG Just is proposing makes sense. So essentially, they're focusing on small cap businesses that are 750 employees or less, and reducing the administrative burden on those businesses through not requiring them to essentially document records of processing activities. So it's focused on these smaller businesses that won't need to, do formal documentation around their processing activities. That's all fine and dandy, but I think, from a pragmatic perspective and for, the organizations that are larger than 750 employees, there's nothing really in it for them for in terms of simplification. So, and the folks at DG Just point blank told me that GDPR simplification really isn't meant for businesses that are above 750 employees, which is was really interesting to hear because I think a lot of us comply with the GDPR and who need to comply with the GDPR are looking for some relief as well, right? Because there's a lot of administrative burden around ROPAs, around, putting out privacy notices and policies. I actually wrote an op-ed, Cam, where I focus on how ROPAs and our privacy notices, there's a lot of overlap. There's like 75% overlap, and how we can basically make that more efficient by requiring maybe just one document that has all the same information. So I think, again, just going back to your original question, my key takeaway was that GDPR simplification is really meant for a smaller subset of companies than I originally thought, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because I mean, it makes you think like, why does everything have to be so complicated in the first place? But I think it's usually by design for the most part.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Cam. I think laws do result in some administrative burden. I think that's the reality, but there's definitely ways in which we can streamline, make it easier for businesses to comply no matter their size. Because at the end of the day, chief privacy officers, and this is my own personal perspective, we're doing our best to ensure consumer privacy. And so I think it's a great thing if we can just lessen the burden on all companies, no matter the size. So
Yeah, good advice. Always. So lastly here, Ron, I know that you had some critical meetings for the European Parliament and the European Commission. Would love to get a little bit of insights from that if you could share.
yeah, Cam, this was actually my second time meeting with folks at the European Parliament and Commission. I actually really love meeting with lawmakers and regulators as well. I think it's really, an opportunity for me to share perspectives from the chief privacy officer community because I still think there's a pretty large gap in terms of understanding how requirements are actually operationalized in real life. So I use these meetings, Cam, as an opportunity to educate, to let these folks know how the requirements that they're working on, how they're actually implemented in real life, the challenges associated with them. And, given the kind of discussions around GDPR simplification, I also provided them with perspective on other potential areas where the GDPR could be simplified.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of head nodding in the room, which I was really happy about. So again, really just use these meetings to inform, to educate, to let them know that I'm there to provide perspective from the privacy community. And it was, I think they were really fruitful and productive meetings. And hopefully I'm making an impact in some way.
I think you are, and it says a lot. Again,
Thank you.
I think I speak for most people in the industry. Thank you for trying to push for, a better way to deal with things. And someone's got to try to do it. I know you're not
Well,
the only
cheers to
one,
that.
but yeah,
Thank you,
cheers to
Cam.
that. Cheers to efficiency and simplification.
Cheers to laws that make sense.